We represent about 85% of the existing cannabis industry here in the state of Illinois. Today's panel that you're here going to listen to are for individuals who perhaps already have a business or are thinking of starting a business that is more of an ancillary business to the cannabis industry. How do I get in the front door? With us today, we have Michael Self, who is with Cresco. She heads their SEED program, which is social equity and educational development. We also have JR, JR Flemming. I just know him as JR. JR Flemming is from the South and West Side Cannabis Coalition. Next to him, we have Paul Chialdikas. He is with, I think I said that wrong. I added a little accent. Chialdikas. He is with Bedford Park. He's going to talk a little bit about the vertically integrated entities. And our first presenter is Edie Moore, who is the executive director of Chicago NORML. So without further ado, Edie, can you go ahead and open us up?
Is this my mic? Is this my mic? Is this my mic? Is this my mic? This is my mic. Hi, everybody. We're going to talk about contracting today. Okay, we had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier, so hopefully they're all worked out, and we're gonna talk about contracting in the cannabis industry with cannabis companies. So first, NORML is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's been around since 1970, and since then they've sponsored advertising campaigns to help educate people about the cannabis plant, and also providing legal assistance to those people who have been victims of current cannabis laws. There are 178 chapters, and Chicago NORML is one of them. We started in 2017. And our mission is to educate and motivate people of color, communities of color, and look at all the color in this room. I love it. Thank you. To accept the cannabis plant as a vehicle for health and wellness and political and economic empowerment for their communities. So, like they said, I'm the executive director. And when they asked me to speak here today, when the city asked me to speak, they initially wanted me to talk about staffing, because that's what we do. We've been talking to people about working in the industry. And I said, no, because not everybody wants to work in the industry. Some people already have businesses, and they just want to work with the industry. And I totally support that, because I have been doing that for the past 18 years, working with businesses, helping them get contracts, get MBE certified. And I've been in the cannabis industry for 7 years. So it seemed like, to me, a really great way to marry those two passions in my life. So when you want to work in the industry, you really want to get familiar with purchasing. I can't see that. I'm going to look up here, because I can't see that. So thank you. I appreciate you. You really want to think about the purchasing department or the procurement department. Those are the departments that set the goals for what they're going to buy and when they're going to buy it and who they're going to buy from and how much and all of that. Are you all familiar with that? Yes. Oops, go this way. So understanding purchasing means, what do they buy? Who do they buy it from? When do they buy it? And how much do they want to pay for it? So for instance, if you want to understand if they are buying what you are selling. So if you sell hair or hair products, you might not want to be selling to a cannabis industry. They may not be buying what you're selling. You all get it? You understand that? Okay. Also, you want to ask them, do they have any MBE or WBE contracting goals? Now, what do I mean by that? There's certain types of opportunities available right now that we always talk about, and that are pretty much everyone understands that the cannabis industry buys. So those are security and professional services. Professional services meaning legal, or accounting or marketing, those kinds of professional services. Equipment, you know, those rolly carts or things like that. Do you sell that? Do you rent those? Construction, of course, because all these cannabis businesses are expanding. So not just GCs, but painters, plumbers, electricians, and supplies, the little clippy things, the little tools that they use, those kinds of supplies. What about paper? Where do they source their paper from? You know, they have to pay people. Where do they source their checks from? Do you sell any of those things, or do you rent any of those things? Uniforms. So they probably don't wear uniforms, but they order shirts. They have, Paul told me about the little jumpsuits that they have to wear when they go into the cultivation centers. What are some of the ones that we didn't think about? Any surprises? Can you think of any? Packaging, that's a good one. CO2 for extraction. Right, Paul? Soil, tools, and kitchen equipment. Those are some that you may not have thought about. Think about what you sell, and maybe the cannabis industry will be buying it from you or renting from you. So I mentioned before about diversity and MBE contracting goals. What are their goals? We need to ask them that. Oops. I skipped one. Oh, do they have 25% goals? 10%? 15%? How do we know? How do we keep them accountable for those goals? Well, we can ask them to accept one of these municipal certifications. MBE, minority-owned businesses. WBE, veteran-owned businesses. Businesses that are owned by people with disabilities. Women-owned businesses, I said that. Disadvantaged-owned business, small business, and mixed-size business. I'm sorry, JR, you wanted me to mention a Section 3. Absolutely. Section 3 is low-income businesses as well. There are also private national certifications. Many of these businesses are national businesses. We call them MSOs, multi-state operators. These are private certifications that they may be able to accept. So if you can get one of these certifications, one of the municipal ones or one of the private ones, and they agree to accept one of these certifications, one or more, then we have accountability. We can count what the participation is. You understand? Okay. We can ask them for a buying plan. City has one, state has one. Why can't they have one? When are they gonna buy it? What are they gonna buy in Q2, Q3? We can help them and help us create measurable and sustainable contracting opportunities for all size businesses. So I kind of glossed over the MBE, WBE. And how you apply for that is kind of a complicated process. Sometimes it takes several months, sometimes it's a lot quicker. But the 5 things that you need to know right now is you have to be, number 1, in one of the qualifying groups. So you have to be an African American, or a woman, or a veteran, or a person with disability, or otherwise disadvantaged. Be a local business, except in the case of a DBE, which is national. 51% owned and controlled by an African American or a woman or veteran, those people in Section 1. And you have to meet the size standards of a small business, pretty much. Okay? So there are a lot of things and you have to meet all of these for the city or state. But there are a lot of things that we can do, these things that we can do to help keep the industry accountable for working with small businesses, small minority-owned or woman-owned businesses. So the next step, if you do want to get certified and you do want to get involved in that, is to attend an info session. The city has them. We're going to be having them at Chicago NORML. Get your supporting documents, and there's a lot of them. Don't be surprised, there's a lot of them. But that's okay, because you all are in business, right? And are ready to contract with these businesses. Attend a workshop or progress meetings to work on your application and then get it going. Contact Paul, contact Cresco, contact Revolution, and ask them what are their goals. We want to work with you. I sell this, you're buying that. You understand? So where can you find Chicago NORML? Everywhere. We're everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edie. Great presentation. And I missed some direction. We're going to have the panel make their presentation. I'm going to provide a few questions, maybe get some clarification, and then we will send the microphones out into the audience if you have any questions that you would like the panel as well for more specific information. So next up on our panel is Paul from Bedford Grow. If you would like to provide some information about the industry in and of itself and what type of opportunities there are at the cultivation and perhaps dispensaries.
Thank you, Pam. Appreciate it. As Pam had mentioned, I'm affiliated with Bedford Grow LLC, and we are also a vertically integrated organization. So we also own dispensaries here in the state of Illinois only. As Edie had mentioned on one of her slides, construction is a massive opportunity for any contractors that might be in this room right now. Think about what's coming. In May, June, the state's going to issue 75 dispensaries. In July, August, they're going to issue 35 or 40 craft growers and 40 infusing license. My guess, all those licenses combined are going to spend in excess of $1.5 billion just in construction. We just finished a build out of our facility, so we're under 80,000 square feet of a facility here in the Chicagoland area. And the new construction phase was in excess of $10 million. So if you think about what we just did on a small scale to finish off our building, some of these facilities that are going to be building these 30 and 40,000 square foot craft growers, they're going to be having construction projects in excess of $15 to $20 million. And that's just construction. That's not taking all the components that are going to be built into the facility, from tables and lights, CO2, as we mentioned earlier, furniture, copy machines, and printers. So if you just take the construction side and put a number on that, just multiply what else is going to be happening in the marketplace. I'm sorry?
I said, are you done?
I could give more if you would like.
You can answer some questions. Moving rapidly down the table, the next speaker that we have is JR Flemming. JR Flemming actually is the executive director of the Chicago Anti-Eviction Campaign, as well as the South and West Side Cannabis Coalition. He recently served on Mayor Lightfoot's Cannabis Task Force. And JR, you want to go?
Thank you. I want to thank everybody out that came. Like Edie said, this is very touching to see so many people of color in this room showing interest in a new industry, so give yourself a round of applause. As most of you know, I'm an activist by trade, an advocate for the people, right? I thought it was quite challenging when I heard about this new industry coming in Chicago. Given our history of African Americans and Latino ability to get contracts, I had zero faith in the industry giving us opportunity, right? I mean, how many of you guys in the audience got faith that we were gonna get at least 20% of these contracts? How many of y'all got faith? How many of y'all would like to see us get at least 30, 40% of these contracts, right?
I have faith.
And like Edie, right, I have faith. I have faith because I'm an organizer. You get what you organize for. A lot of what you see today isn't just because of the state passed the law, but it's the collective effort of organizations like Chicago NORML, Hemp for Hood, Eat Pure, the city of Chicago, right? You got to give them a round of applause for putting this on for the people, right? We hear this word equity a lot. You know, equity, equity, equity. So when I heard the word being a contractor with the Chicago Housing Authority, right? An agency that increased last year contracts by $128 million. The Chicago Housing Authority for minorities in this city, right? I felt compelled to do something in this industry to assure that when they said it was going to be $1 billion worth of contracting, I automatically started running numbers. 10% is $100 million, 20%, $200 million. We need a cut of that, right? So how do we get there? So we formed the organization Hemp for Hood and the Southwest Cannabis Coalition, right? And we're asking all of the folks in here, industry leaders who already have operating cultivating centers, dispensaries, and social equity applicants who might be awarded a license. Set aside 30% of your contracts for minority and community contractors. Make 60, 70% of your new hires in your retail facility from folks from the community. The only way we're gonna get equity if we do this together. The only way we're gonna change the conditions of our community if we do this together. And folks aren't just looking for jobs, we want contracts, right? We want opportunities to get rich like you guys, okay? So I'm not gonna talk much, I wanna hear from you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And next up, we have Michael Self. Your program says John Sullivan. Unfortunately, there's some icky flu going on through Cresco. So Michael is here. She runs the, as I stated, the seed program at Cresco. Michael?
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. So I think just to echo what my colleagues have said, specifically what Edie has said, there are opportunities for everyone in the cannabis industry. I think specifically that you two didn't focus on is that professional services piece. The cannabis industry, cannabis businesses are the same as any other business. So they need, human resources, they need lawyers, they need people in real estate. You mentioned construction, accounting, finance. My background is in mental health and human rights and social justice. And so I too work in the cannabis industry. I think the biggest thing is, with respect to opportunities, is you have your expertise as a business owner or a professional in some way. How can you get into the cannabis industry? What gap can you fill? And so what you can do is look at the cannabis industry and learn about the different regulations, the different nuances in the cannabis industry. So if you are a lawyer, and cannabis isn't your expertise, learn about it. Learn what the state laws say and how you can come to Cresco and advocate for your law group or yourself to gain employment. How can you fill a gap that Cresco does not have? So I think that's the biggest thing with respect to contracting and gaining entry into the cannabis industry is the jobs are there. As they have explained, they're going to continue to increase. I had several people contact me today about how can their business be a part of the cannabis industry? How can they find jobs in the cannabis industry? So take your business, learn about the nuances of the cannabis industry, and advocate for yourself. Make sure that you contact Cresco and other businesses and find out what their diversity and inclusion goals are, because we do have them, and we are actively focusing on them through the seed program, through our HR department, through our procurement program. Ask those questions, advocate for yourself, your community, and your business, and then say, what can you do as a minority-owned business, as a woman-owned business, as an other disenfranchised group? How can you enter the cannabis industry and make your mark in a way that people have been doing for centuries?
So I'd like to get a little practical here. And Edie, I'll throw the question out to you first and anyone else who wants to answer. We've heard, find the jobs, reach out. I'm a contractor. I'm going to reach out. How do I develop that credibility? How do I get through the front door? I'm on the phone and I'm begging for it, and people are saying, yeah, call back, or you need this person, and I leave a message and nobody calls me back. How do I break that barrier? How do I get in the front door?
Well, I would say it's just like any other business that you're trying to get into. My background is in construction management and professional services and construction too. So we had to do that marketing with any business. So it's the same, it's no different. You just learn about the nuances, like Michael said, the nuances about cannabis. So if you are a contractor, you need to know, well, they're gonna need a special kind of vault, or they're gonna need a special kind of whatever it is. You need to learn that, and that's where the credibility comes from. So if you just call up and say, yeah, so I wanna get in, that ain't enough. And you all know it's not enough because you're business people.
I think just to piggyback on that, there's lots of conferences happening. This event is happening. What are the cannabis conferences? What, insurance, law, journalism, all of these different professional organizations, you do your networking, A closed mouth does not get fed, right? So you do your networking. I have people that stop me and will not let me go till they let me know what expertise they have and how they want their business to be a part of the cannabis industry. So advocate for yourself. Advocate for your business, and just attend these events and be present. Build these relationships so that when the procurement department is looking for a specific business to fill a specific gap, they know you, they know your business, they know you're a credible source, and so they're going to seek you out.
One thing I would ask, though, to the cannabis industry is make sure that you are putting out those RFPs just like other businesses are. Make sure you are putting out the opportunities that are there. So if you are going to paint a room, put that out. Let the painters know that you are going to be painting a facility, or that you are going to be doing some extra roofing or something like that. So that has to be, the onus shouldn't only be on us to go seek it out. Agreed. Yeah.
So once again, giving credit to the Mayor's Lightfoot Cannabis Task Force, one of the things the dispensaries have to do to open up their +1 location is hold public community meetings. You heard about them, right? I would suggest that community contractors, where they're looking to open a dispensary in your community, attend that meeting. Ask them what are their community plans, right, on a community, not just community engagement, but on community contracting, right, and how that process will come out in RFP. And put it on your alderman too, not to put anybody on the spot. This should be a requirement when they come in for a community meeting, that they have a list of the contracts that they're going to be looking to do, right? If you're looking to open up a second facility, you're looking to do some type of rehab work in it. And if you're looking to open up in a particular community, you should be asking the alderman, a trade association, nonprofits, what existing businesses in that community that are disadvantaged. Because remember, this is about the disadvantaged folks, right? Those who struggle with the war on drugs. So ask where them folks are. And I would just give the cannabis industry a cheat sheet. The Chicago Housing Authority Section 3 office has a database of most of your low-income and minority contractors who come from disproportionately impacted areas known as public housing. Let's give them folks who suffer from the war on drugs an opportunity to participate in this industry.
And I'm only going to add on to that. It's not only letting those folks participate in the industry, but it's all of you continuing that network. We have to prop each other up, right? I mean, that's part of the whole process. So without putting you on the spot, what type of existing businesses come to your mind immediately that can transfer over into the cannabis business without too much effort? I mean, outside of the professions that we're just referenced.
Well, Edie mentioned it on one of the slides. So when we built our facility 4.5, almost 5 years ago, and we were building out our extraction lab, and we had made a decision that we were going to extract with CO2. So how do you source CO2? We didn't know anything about the tanks. We didn't know anything about who was carrying it. So we went to a local restaurant and found out that they source through a specific company on the western suburbs who has tankfuls of CO2. They park the tanks at our facility and fill them for us. So we extract exclusively with CO2. We would never have known that. And that was a source, if you met the gentleman that owns the company, it's called McCarb. McCarb just entered into a whole new category that he never knew about, because all he was servicing was taverns, restaurants, craft brew locations, and they were exclusively using CO2 at the time. So there's a lot of things that sit within our facility that are very similar to other companies. You just got to dig them out. You got to figure out what works.
Signage.
Signage. Michael made a great comment. understand the rules. The rules are really strict in this industry. If any of you are applying for a craft grow or an infusion license or a transporter's license, you're going to see it's a very detailed application form. That's the same rules we have to play by. You couldn't come to our facility. We're located in Bedford Park. You couldn't come to my facility right now and knock on our door and try to solicit us because the state will not allow you in our facility. So you have to find these sources of these events that Michael was talking about and JR is talking about, where you can network with all of us. Go ahead.
Where is your procurement department? How do we find that? I mean, you gotta
so the question that Edie is asking is, if I can't gain access, where's the procurement department? How do it? That was again going back to what I did. Who do I call? How do I make that contact?
So right now, a lot of us are. If you think what's happened to this category, it's a startup industry with a lot of startup businesses within it. A lot of us are learning as we go. Some of us are larger. Some of us can play in multi-states and be able to get the financing and build out elaborate websites and have the different departments so where you can contact. Us, we're small. We're a family-owned business. We're actually a 100% women-owned business in the state of Illinois. Nobody else can claim that. So our website's not up to date, but our Contact Us is up to date. So if you send something through the Contact Us on our website, it'll end up in the proper hands. We're a very small, lean and mean organization, and we share the information around. But your biggest source is this. This networking is unbelievable, what happens here. There's an event that comes to mind. Somebody said, hey, well, where do all the growers get together? Where do all the extractors get together? There was an event that started 5 years ago called Illinois Women in Cannabis. And it was designed for the industry, which has now expanded to beyond industry-related folks and patients. It's everyone. And everybody takes a table there. Pay attention to that event, because a lot of us are there, and we're looking for sources. You know, we can't be everywhere at all times to look for the procurement. But back to the Edie's, we're getting there. We're gonna be a company that's gonna post things and be able to get out there and do RFPs. But we're not there yet, because we're focused on right now growing the best possible weed and getting it to the street.
And those Women in Cannabis events are regional. They're throughout the entire state of Illinois. So if you know other people and other places, there are events throughout the entire state.
I was just going to say, I think one of the other opportunities that may be unique in the cannabis industry that you might not readily think of is advocacy, is community integration, corporate social responsibility. You know, as we talk about these community meetings, you know, cannabis companies want to be a partner in the community. I'll speak for Cresco. Cresco wants to be a partner in the community. And it's not about going to the community and saying, this is what we're gonna do for you. We're coming to the community and saying, what is it that you need? How can we be a partner? How can we collaborate? So somebody has to do that job. There are lots of small consultancies out there. There are lots of small businesses that do activism, that do advocacy, that understand the corporate social responsibility landscape. So how can your business come to the cannabis industry and say, hey, I have rapport with this community, whereas you may not? This is what the community needs. You know, I'm a reputable source, and here's your inroad into that community. If you want to be have a presence in that community with a dispensary or a cultivation center, how can you be a partner in the community? How can you invest in the community so the community knows that you're just not looking to take resources, but you're looking to put some back?
I would just say, once again, a recommendation to the corporations and pre-existing businesses in the industry. The city of Chicago has a website directly for cannabis. Again, the CHA has an office, the Section 3 office. I think posting notices to them, to the government, the aldermen and folks like that will make it public enough where everybody feel like it's been a transparent process. So I would suggest that any RFPs come out, definitely send it to the task force, the city, and the respective agencies.
Are there any questions from the audience that you would like to take advantage of these individuals while they're up here? I will tell you that the opportunity after we are done with the sidebars, you can certainly find them and have those conversations then if it's more specific. But yes, ma'am, right here in the front.
Hi, we are part of the social program. Closer? Okay, thank you. important question that I don't think gets proper addressing is banking in the industry and what our options are and how we conquer this. How do we approach the safe banking acts that and the cash business that nobody addresses as far as social equity or just the industry in general? So I just think that's an important question, and that maybe someone here could assist all of us here in this auditorium and giving us a step in the direction.
You want to take it?
Can you repeat it a little bit too?
Yeah,
please.
Okay, she asked about addressing the Banking Act and the fact that the cannabis businesses are mostly all cash businesses, and small businesses will have a problem with being banked as well. And that is a serious problem. I'm so glad you brought that up because it affects small businesses the most. I know a lot of people don't believe this, but a lot of these cannabis businesses are also small businesses. And if you want to contract with them, you then become what do they call it, a marijuana-related business, and the bank won't, they're like, well, you know, I don't know if you can't take the money. So it is definitely a problem. Advocacy. You have to be talking with your legislators. We are too. But that's really the main way that we're going to be able to change this is through advocacy. I heard recently this week that there are some banks, some state banks that will bank cannabis businesses, but they're keeping it on the hush. They're keeping it on the quiet. They're not letting people know, and that's a problem. Damn it. I almost made it. That is definitely a problem because it affects small businesses the most. It affects me. It definitely affects me. So when I'm getting donations from people like Paul today, he's going to give us a donation. That's basically taking money from a cannabis business, and that is dangerous to our organization. So I definitely applaud. I don't have the answer, but advocacy is the answer that I know of.
And I would tell you that that's one of the reasons that the Cannabis Association exists too, is to be that advocate, both here in the city of Chicago as well as in Springfield. We have a monthly newsletter that'll tell you not only where we have job fairs and opportunities, but also what issues we're fighting on your behalf for. So you can go to, it's CBAIL. That's the www address, and we'll keep you updated on exactly that. We need direction. How do we do that? Where does our infusion go? If we want to have cooking classes, where can we take them? So all of those new opportunities that have yet to be flushed out, we want your input. So, I'm sorry, Paul?
I was going to say that there is banks that are doing business with what's in the state right now. There's about a half a dozen of them, and it's growing. They're taking their time. They're going very slow because they have to meet strict charters from the state and from the federal government. And only independent locations in the state of Illinois can do business with cannabis companies in the state of Illinois. So if you're an applicant looking for a bank, do not look at a bank that crosses state lines. Look for a local regional bank that only operates within the state of Illinois. So there's about 3 banks in downtown Springfield that are doing business with all of us right now, and we're hearing there's about another 4 coming online soon. And
they're state chartered banks.
Right.
They don't have federal charters.
The state's really championing for it. It's happening. It's coming. And by the time a lot of these applications are awarded, they'll be more on board operating in the industry.
But I can also say, put pressure on your credit unions. Put pressure on them. Tell them, look, I've been a member of this credit union for however long you have been, and people in this community want to work with this industry. How can we do that? Put pressure on them because they can decide. They don't have to not work with you.
That's right, and the people drive the process for corporations. I was in a task force meeting, and I heard several major MSOs state Black folks want equity in this industry. Get a black bank to take the money. Get a black credit union to take the money. And that would help to ease the process. So that's some advocacy work. But again, that's pressure, advocacy, organizing. It's going to happen besides the people up here, the people with the table. It's going to take more folks in the audience to get out here, to get organized, and to get to advocating with your community, clergy, and elected officials. It's going to take all of us to get equity.
And I'm going to do a little pitch for the state of Illinois. The Illinois State Treasurer, Michael Frericks, is doing everything he can in his power to be a leader in this industry, particularly in the banking and the financial aspect of it. And he actually led some legislation that passed this last session that allows individuals within the state of Illinois to go ahead and engage in cannabis businesses without the state coming after them in any regard whatsoever. The problem, again, is from the federal perspective. But we do have advocates. You need to know who they are and support them. Any other questions? There were some over here. And hold that microphone really close to your lips.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Is it working?
Yes. Okay, I guess I'm asking the question over here. So, over here? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Behind you. Okay. I would be considered a social equity applicant, and I was reading over the HB 1438, the Illinois law, and I saw something on there talking about the larger growers and everything have an option to pay a certain amount of money, or they can help out smaller craft growers or applicants, social equity applicants in particular, as a kind of just like an internship of sorts. And I want to know if Cresco or any of the bigger players at the moment have any interest or are planning on doing that, because it seems like a much easier way. Because from my perspective, it seems a lot of people from outside of Illinois and Chicago are coming in and have those resources and information, and it makes it very difficult for social equity applicants like myself to get to that point.
Do you want to answer that, Michael? Do you want to answer that?
So at Cresco, right now, we are running our community business incubator under the SEED program, and we are focused specifically on social equity applicants to give them the exposure to Cresco's subject matter experts in growing and infusing and manufacturing the plant. Also, they are exposed to our lawyers that write the applications for Cresco are walking through the application with social equity applicants to give them guidance, advice, tips on how to write their application and make sure that make sure they differentiate that application among the masses. So that's one way that Cresco specifically focuses on helping social equity applicants, individuals and businesses gain opportunity and pathways into the cannabis industry. I'm not sure if that answers your question, does it? I can't hear you.
That's going to be as good as I get for me.
And again, I'm going to push our association a little bit. If you go on our website or if you sign up for our newsletter, we're booth number 30. We are actually, CBAI is working with DCEO, don't you love all those letters? The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity here at the state of Illinois. And we are also hosting some seminars and symposiums on exactly that, to go through the application process and help you figure out exactly what you need to do to elevate your application. So please go and visit the website and we'll provide you more information. JR?
Yeah, just real quick, any social equity applicant in here, stop at table 1 through 10, right? That's got a lot of the big corporations there. If they don't have an incubator program, push them to get one.
Another question?
Excuse me. Can you hear me? I guess it's like a two-part kind of a question.
Can't keep doing that.
Hold the mic still and hold it close to your mouth.
I guess it's kind of like a two-part type of question.
It's not.
I guess it's kind of like a two-part type of question because, first of all, the average Joe on the street that's been selling weed for years and years, they're interested in this, but they're not going to want to hear, you got to go through this, you got to go through that, and you got to go, and they say, oh, the same politics. So they're going to keep selling it like they've been doing it without these taxes added to it. And so maybe we should consider that, you know, because there's a lot of people been selling weed for years. And they're interested in, and they're just regular people, have a job or don't have a job. And the other part is, are they going to make, you know, they give you a deadline on when you can open a dispensary. Are they going to continue to say only so many, or are they going to say, well, now, 9 months from now, we can open a dispensary, so maybe people can save their money, put it together, and can afford to open a dispensary? So is it going to be like, oh, we get eight people and that's it? Or is it going to be an opportunity to open it later and give us prices on what it costs?
I think I heard it. So I'm going to repeat it a little bit, and I'm going to take the second part of your question first. So she wanted to know, is the state going to be putting out a deadline to when you can open dispensaries, and are going to be letting people know how many there are and all of that? And they continue to add, I heard it. So that is in statute, that is in the law. So this first go round in 2020, there's 75 licenses available. And in 2021, in December 2021, they're gonna add another 110, is that right? 110 licenses available. So those are marked in the statute, so you know when those are. The state will add up to 500, but they're gonna wait until after that second wave to determine whether or not they will need more. Do you understand? So if you can find that information on the city's website, on the state's website, at Chicago NORML, you can find that almost everywhere. And then the first part of your question was about people selling weed already. and that they don't want to be contractors. They are contractors. They're just not legal contractors. They don't want to go through the process. Somebody else want to take that? So there is a process. So if they don't want to go through the process, they're going to still be outside of the law. So this is all about legal processes.
And trust me, you want to keep it legal. So I was blessed and fortunate the other day to have my record expunged. And I sold it extra legally or illegally back in the 90s, right? Couldn't pay me nothing in the world to do it illegally today after getting that record expunged. And I would say that to young folks out there who's getting misinformation, right? That this is legal now. You have to have a dispensing organization license to sell it out of a facility. You can't sell it on the street no type of way. The rumors about the Uber weed, not gonna happen, right? The peddler license, not gonna happen, right? And so I don't want folks getting misinformation. Now, I will, to the credit of the city, give them credit about the way the police is gonna approach this, right? And the fine system of that nature. But selling any drug without a license is illegal, regardless if it's legal or not in the state. So don't be fooled because you heard that it's legal now, that you can get away with selling a couple bags here and there. We trying to make sure the 770,000 people who got their record clean, that another 770,000 don't come behind them. And so we're pleading with the public. Please don't be out there selling nothing illegal, thinking that you're gonna get away with it.
Yeah, the market is be responsible. We don't want the state to start to constrict us before we have an opportunity to really expand. So be responsible.
I think what I just heard you say is that we shouldn't make it so hard. The state shouldn't make it so hard to get into the system. I totally get it. You know, I totally get it. And it is difficult. Yeah, I mean, it is no quick fix to getting into the cannabis industry in a legal way. Some of the things that I would encourage is get creative. Get with your community. I had an organization contact me the other day and said it's 140 of us, you know, trying to come together and pool our resources. And their resources are writers, lawyers, accountants, you know, Find who is in your community and come together so that you can put your resources together, and it won't be so hard because there'll be so many of you focused on it, and it's not just you by yourself.
And then there's Toy Hutchinson. The last point, I want to shout out Toy Hutchinson, right? This is why her position is key. If the 75 licenses that come out don't hit a certain ethnic group, or there's not enough equity for people of color, or blacks and Latinos, that is the position of Toy, right? Her disparities study. So I'm gonna use 3 words: give it some time and trust the process.
And it will get easier as time goes on and we show that we are a responsible entity. Other questions? We have time for maybe 2 more, so you can pick them out wherever you see the hands. There. Oh, thank you. Yes, sir, over here, and then there's some over here.
Okay, you guys mentioned purchasing and procurement. What are the precedents set for someone pursuing a private label agreement with a company as large as Cresco or anyone on the panel?
Were you questioning private labeling within a facility?
So private label agreement. So if I already make a pre-existing product and I want to contract with you to produce the product for you, what precedents are set for that already?
So currently, under the state statute, everything that's produced has to be produced within a licensed facility. So can I ask you what kind of product line are you talking about?
Packaging.
So packaging, private label. Right now, everybody's always looking for new packaging opportunities, whether it's recyclable or something that's good for the environment. Us personally, everything is handled through the website, so through our Contact Us, or stop by our booth and drop a brochure off with us or with me. I'll be standing there after this event. But beyond that, you have to network within the category to push your product, as we talked about earlier at a lot of these events. Did I answer it?
Yeah. Also, with the licenses, right, with the contracting, there's a limited amount. Let's say 40 licenses are issued. Is there anything set where someone can work as a subsidiary under that particular license? So I may not win a license, but I mean, I've had a handshake agreement with another company who I can work under their license. Is there a precedent set for that?
If I think I understood you correctly, you're saying you want to work like as a subcontractor under someone else's license? I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure of the legalities of that. It's my understanding that if you want to, let's say you want to infuse products, under Cresco, you'd have to work for Cresco to infuse those products and infuse products at Cresco's cultivation centers.
Yeah, anything that gets produced in a cultivation facility runs under the license holder's name. So if you were producing cookies, I had a gentleman stop by, wanted to solicit pop-up donut facilities throughout the city. It can't happen. It has to be produced within our facility and employed by the company, because the license is held with the state and the cultivation facility.
But to his point, there should be a subcontracting. I don't see any reason why we can't start exploring that subcontracting model where you have something going on in your facility. It doesn't have to be an employee. It should be able to be a subcontractor.
And there are some that do exist in some of the dispensaries where they are subcontracting for another company to come in and produce a product.
That's right.
That's under their labeling, yeah. Okay, I was just yelled at that I was leaning way too much to my left, so now I'm gonna lean to my right a little bit. You want this?
Well, no, just so
after I get
there's like maybe 10 to 15 minutes left before the actual start of the next. So how many more questions do you really want to take?
Why don't we take these 3 from the side and we can call it quit?
Someone already has the mic there.
Okay, all right, so finish one question and we'll lean to the right and finish with, depending on how long they are, maybe 3 more over here. Okay.
So is it on?
5, the session that's going to happen here is session 5, working in the industry. So we want to give the time, the panel to clear off and everything. So We're only taking about 10 more minutes worth of Q&A.
Right. And again, as I stated, you can always find the panelists on either side of the stage after we're done. Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, how are you? I want to thank all of you for coming. This has been awesome. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Now, I am a community college student. So you still can't hear me? Is that better? Is that better? Okay. That's weird, but okay. So I'm going to be a part of the first tier program for Olive Harvey College to actually come out and take cannabis classes. So we are very much ecstatic about it, and of course it's new. So what are we doing? Because I'm going to be part of student government again, and we want to know what the companies are offering as far as employment opportunities for managerial experience, individuals that are coming in and also want to be growers, so that when we actually leave these classes, we are disseminated properly into our proper fields, and that we have opportunities available in those fields, you know, for this cannabis industry.
Well, I think the next panel is going to address working in the cannabis industry, but I think it's like anything else. You know, as a young college student, I wanted to work in a specific industry, so I networked, I focused on that specific industry until I was able to find an inroad. With the cannabis industry in particular, everybody's hiring in a lot of different fields. So focus on what your interests are, use that opportunity to have that specific academic experience, to advocate for yourself. When, you know, Cresco is having a job fair today in Lincoln, Illinois. So pay attention to when the cannabis businesses are having these hiring fairs, and make sure you go and present yourself with your education, and, you know, and come with it, you know.
And over here, questions?
So thank you for hosting this.
I'm just following the guy with the microphone.
Thank you for hosting this. My question is, and Edie talked about it in the beginning, around how the MBE and the various certifications would be important. But I want a clarification, because my understanding is that the MBE certifications really only account for federal contracts, state contracts, city contracts, and these are privately held companies. So I wanted to ask to the gentleman from Bedford and Cresco, do you all have specific set-aside, or not because you use the word set-aside, do you have specific programs where you are looking for a certain percentage of MBE, WMBE companies outside of the seed program where you're getting people set up? Do you have goals of that within your privately held companies?
Bedford Grow currently does not. We're a small cultivator in the city or in the suburbs. But you made a comment that makes everybody needs to understand here. We're not even recognized as a federal company. The federal government doesn't recognize us as an industry. So a lot of these qualifications right now are building to the point when all this advocacy comes into play and the federal government lowers the borders and the boundaries where we can start putting programs like that into place. But right now we are currently a small cultivator with a very lean staff that we're not there yet. We're getting there.
So with Cresco's a publicly traded company. And even though we're not bound by the federal guidelines, we definitely are aware and looking to make sure that our contracts, our professional services, and even our employment meets certain guidelines with respect to diversity and inclusion. So the women and minority-owned businesses, veterans, people with disabilities, those are things that we're focusing on and developing strategies on right now. So one of the things, there's cannabis associations, like business associations, that have written specific corporate social responsibility programs that, as a cannabis industry, if Cresco wants to be a member, we have to follow those specific guidelines and submit annual reports on how many minorities do we employ, how many minorities in leadership do we employ, women, LGBT people, people with past offenses on their record. So that's something that Cresco is developing strategy on right now. And even if the strategy is not solidified just yet, we're hiring all the time, and we're looking at those numbers. And we've just looked at those numbers in New York, for example, and we're exceeding the diversity and inclusion goals, or what the representation is in the community. We're exceeding that in New York. And so we're looking to do that in every state in which we're operating.
And I'm getting the wink. One last question, please.
Here, there, yeah.
Hold on, guys, hold on. I'll be over there to check with you guys. We got one more question after this one here. So there's I've just gauged the questions. One is related to taxes and how, and I guess the implications is federal taxes required to be paid. The other one is in relation to those taxes over there, and comparison as far as the restrictions here in Illinois and with the zoning, and how does that compare across the state? And yeah, so the question regarding zoning is, how comprehensive is Illinois' zoning requirements, and how do they compare nationally to other locations that are doing the zoning? And taxes, what the tax question is, are federal taxes required, or how complicated it is? Is it the whole paying taxes at the end?
Taxes, and I'll go to, okay.
Yeah, so I can't answer about the zoning on other states because we only play here in the state of Illinois. But as far as taxes goes, we operate and pay our taxes. We pay federal taxes even though they don't recognize us as an industry, and we pay our state taxes as a business. So I don't want anybody walking away from here thinking that we're not paying our due. We are paying our due as far as an organization goes. And that goes to payroll taxes. You know, some of these organizations that when we first started, we were paying cash to our employees, but we were withdrawing taxes so we can file with the state of Illinois and with the federal government. So I want to take that away, and everybody knows that we're paying our due as an organization or organizations. Yeah, we do. We do, as Pam says, we do pay more federal taxes because we don't have any deductions within the industry. So yeah, I'll leave it alone.
Go ahead. So, if a company is contracted with you, would they have to come under 280E as well, or do they just stay with their regular whatever it is that they do taxes?
That's a great question.
Ah. Okay. They don't know.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know. We are not recognized by the federal government. This is all state regulated. There is always the chance that the federal government will choose to become more engaged in state programs. They have not. They're turning a blind eye to it. But this is all regulated by each of the individual states. And when it comes to zoning, it was the belief of the legislature that every community should be able to address whether or not they wanted a cannabis business in their community. So there is an opt-out clause in the legislation. And so all the zoning is also local. So zoning requirements in the city of Chicago may be vastly different than zoning requirements in St. Charles, Illinois. You need to go to where you want to locate and discover what their zoning requirements are. For example, in Chicago right now, you must have a community hearing. That is not necessarily the case in other communities. So it's very specific to where you want to locate your business.
Real quick, and in terms of consumption, so here's a kicker, here's a freebie for y'all, right? If you're really looking to get in the industry right now and get some money, right now there's an absence of where people should be legally consuming marijuana, meaning consumption lounge. If you open a hookah or a cigar shop that allows marijuana smokers to come in, you'll do well, because right now with a couple current polls out there, a lot of cigar shops are rejecting marijuana smokers and a lot of hookah lounges. So if you're looking to get in, I heard the city license is gonna be like $4,500, right? Here's an opportunity for you to get in and do some good for the people of Chicago.
All right, the last two set of questions is concerning Cresco and the incubator, the seed program. This gentleman would like to know when is the next available session or opportunity. And before you answer that one, the final question is concerning websites and legal consumption. What's the regulations on that, and what is the details you can share on that?
I can address the seed question. I can't address the consumption question. So the seed incubator is timed specifically for when the state applications are due. So the next round of application, the next round of the incubator will be, I believe, when are the next applications due? Is it's due in December for Craft Grow and Infuser again? So if that is, no, I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about the next one. So right now, we're in the middle of an incubator for the Craft Grow and Infuser applications that the state starts accepting on February 14th and stops accepting on March 16th. So we're in the midst of that right now. We will be doing another one when there is another round of applications due to the state. So follow Cresco on social media. We have an email contact sheet going at our table back there. So we'll be putting out our application to our incubator program when the next round of applications are due to the state. Some of the things that you need to consider when applying to the incubator program is with this round specifically, you need to have real estate. So we're looking for people who have actually thought that through. Pay attention to those details. Submit your business plan and demonstrate, number one, that you're able to write this application, which is significantly technical. You've thought about the real estate in specific detail. You've thought about your business. I want to make edibles. Okay, what kind of edibles? Do you want to make cookies? Do you want to make, I don't know, gummies? What do you want to do? So pay attention to those details and address them in your application, because that's something that the state is going to be looking for as well.
Point of clarification. The city of Chicago has yet to pass consumption. So let me be clear. The state has passed the law on consumption. The city has yet to pass the law on consumption.
Now, the consumption question was related to websites. Websites. Online websites that encourage consumption. You can buy.
There are no regulations about, you cannot buy cannabis online. What was it about social consumption online? So we have. It was
about buying online and stuff.
Yeah, you cannot buy online.
Don't buy online. Don't ship no packages to Chicago. I'm giving y'all fair warning.
Now you can do CBD, right? Can't you do that online? CBD only, and hemp, but not cannabis, not THC.
And just the reason why this is kind of being rolled out slowly is to avoid what we watched happen in other states, either that we gave too many licenses and there was an overproduction, or we didn't give enough licenses and there wasn't enough access. So the state is really taking a very serious look at all of this and making sure that those people who choose to engage in the industry are successful before we do the next round of applications. I am told that we only have 2 minutes left. We'll take, we're done. Thank you very much. The panelists will be over here if you have any other questions and like to talk to them individually. Thank you very, very much.